Morning, Colin. We're dealing right now with the whole question of coastal erosion and coastal protection. 3,500 kilometres of the British coastline is at risk of flooding, and over 90% is now protected. Over the last 60 years, flood walls, groins and defences have been put up to try and slow down and stop the erosion, but it hasn't really worked over the last few weeks. There has been considerable damage along the coastline in places like Studland Bay here. The National Trust is one of the great custodians of our coastline. They own 740-odd miles of it. They manage over a third of the coastline here in the southwest of the country and a tenth of the overall coastline of the UK. And I'm joined now by Ellie McDonald from National Trust. Ellie, good to see you. You're project manager with Living with a Changing Coast. And for a start, I mean, what have you noticed? How bad has been the erosion in the last few weeks?
Well, the combination of high winds and high tides has really brought a lot of damage to Studland. The scary thing is that the damage that we're seeing, and you'll see today, was really just over a short window as the winds moved around to the southeast. So we've actually got off fairly lightly.
I was just going to start walking along towards some of the dunes here. Now, it's already changed the shape of this coast alone, hasn't it, here? I mean, I'm just looking at where the dunes have broken up and started to come away. I know it's a fairly small example, but that's a big change in a short time.
Well, I mean, these dunes used to be out to about here. We're used to about 1 or 2 metres of erosion each year, but we've seen up to 10 metres of erosion just in the last 2 weeks. And we've had big chunks of chalk come off the cliffs at Old Harry onto the beach. We've had a fairly significant landslide to the south of the bay, which has meant we've had to cordon off one of the buildings, and some concrete steps are sort of floating in mid-air due to the erosion.
I gather the National Trust is saying today that there are parts of the land that it manages along the coastline where they've seen 7 years erosion in a couple of weeks. I mean, that is hugely dramatic.
That's
and it's
right.
Way ahead of the plans you presumably had to prepare and protect.
Yeah, at Burling Gap in East Sussex, they've seen 7 metres in the last 7 years worth of erosion in the last 2 months. There's a shop and a cafe there at the top of a chalk cliff that's eroding away. Luckily, that building has actually been designed to be deconstructed and moved back so that they can continue to move back with that eroding cliff. And that's an example of some of the methods of adaptation we're looking at using.
How's it changing thinking now? I mean, as we look at all this coast here, I mean, it's quite a mess, really. Are you starting to think we need to prepare and protect in a different way?
Well, the National Trust has had a long history of managing the coast, as you've suggested, so we've learnt what not to do and what to do. And although there was some hard defences at Studland in the 80s, we're now working to work with natural processes and remove some of those defences, because we've learned that the best way of protecting the beach and ensuring that there is a beach at Studland into the long term is to actually allow it to naturally migrate landwards. And if you try and hold back sand in one location, it will actually cause more erosion further up the coast.
So instead of the old hard wall defences that we saw thrown up around the coast after the 53 floods, which killed 300 people at the time, the thought is to move towards softer defences.
That's right. And we have, with the Living with a Changing Coast project, we're working with the Arts University Bournemouth on a future-proof beach hut design. So the students there, their architecture students, are coming up with some concepts of designs of how we can create a beach hut that would survive some of the extreme weather that we're seeing. And that's just one example of the adaptation that we'd like to apply across the peninsula.
So really, we're learning to adapt.
That's right. Yeah, that's the key. And working in partnership is also key. And we want to involve the local community in that process of planning to adapt around the coast.
Ellie, thanks very much indeed. So the message is we've got to learn from what we've seen around the coast up to now. We've got to not only adapt, but understand that you can't stop the changing face and the shape of Britain. What you've got to do is find a better way of stopping the coastal erosion at quite the pace it's been going at the moment. I'm going to move up here and talk to another National Trust staff member, Emma Wright. Emma looks after this whole area of Studland Bay. And morning, Emma.
Hi there.
Give us an idea. I mean, this hut here you've had to move back. That's been one of the victims, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was sat across there about a week ago. We just had to pull it right back out the waves, basically. The coast here is easterly facing, and suddenly the wind turned southeasterly, which just ripped into it and took the hut out. So, yeah, it's very quick action in a few hours' time, really.
Surprised you, really, the speed of it and the extent of the damage, did it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a lot of a year's worth of erosion in a very short space of time. So, yeah, it just comes up very quickly and sort of shocks you at times. Yeah, definitely.
What else have you seen along here? I mean, we were talking to Ellie there about the dune movement. I mean, it's moved, literally yards, hasn't it? Some of the dunes.
Yeah, it has. I mean, you can watch it before your eyes, moving as the waves are pounding into them. So, yeah, it takes it great chunks away and just changes it hour by hour, as I said.
Presumably, everybody's having to have a bit of a rethink about, how to cope with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to turn every problem into an opportunity, and we're looking at our facilities at the moment and sort of, what can we do next? They're not going to stay here forever, and this is our honeypot site. This is where we... as a conservation charity, we make all our money for the site. So, we need to be desperately thinking about long-term plans, really.
And those long-term plans, could they mean moving? I mean, are we going to have to be even more respectful of the sea and perhaps give it a bit more space?
Yeah, I think it's adapting it, whether that means mobile units as catering units, whether that means moving the whole building further up onto higher ground, whether that means moving it into other areas. That's what we're looking at the moment. There's no easy answers to it, but, we're sort of forward thinking.
And in places 7 years of erosion in 2 weeks, it means you've got to play catch-up now, really, to sort of get ahead of what nature might do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, hopefully that is the end of the storms for this winter. Who knows? But that's what we're hoping. And, over the summer, the area here will stabilise. We'll have lots of visitors coming back again. Next winter's another prospect, and see what happens then. But, yeah, it's constantly moving, constantly changing.
Emma, thanks very much indeed. So, just an idea of what the erosion of these storms over the last few weeks can do to just one stretch of our huge coastline. As a nation, we love the coastline. We love to go and play on the coastline. We love to enjoy the scenes. We love to walk along the coastal paths. And there is a great coastal path here that stretches for 635 miles, the longest in the world, that many people come to see. And, of course, people love living by the sea. So it's going to take a major rethink now to decide just how we are going to protect our shorelines and whether we need to rethink the way we've been doing it up to now and look for more solutions as to how we deal with and how we respect the sea and the coastlines around our country.